Hello everyone, welcome to GATE NPTL. Today we are going to solve a question from psychology, which is a one mark question from the topic of social psychology. Now let's read the question. If cultural congruence is social psychology, then evoked culture is dash. And we have four options. One is evolutionary psychology, two, cultural psychology, three, cross cultural psychology, and four, clinical psychology. So basically, here we should find this evoked culture is a key characteristics of which type of psychological types they have given, either in evolutionary, cultural, cross cultural, or clinical. Now let's try to understand what are these types of psychology they have given. Then we can get back to the question. Before that, let's understand how cultural congruence is given as social psychology in the question. So, cultural congruence basically refers to the harmony between an individual's behavior, beliefs, and the cultural norms of their society. And this is what we basically study in social psychology, which basically examines how our thoughts, feelings, and actions are influenced by the social and cultural environment. And also, social psychologists majorly explore the concepts such as conformity, attitudes, and group dynamics. Either it is aligning with or is it divergent from the cultural expectations. So that is what cultural congruence is equal to social psychology given in the question. So in this similar fashion, we should find the evoked culture is in which type of psychology. So we have an option of cultural psychology. So majorly the cultural psychology focus on how our culture shapes our psychological process and how our mind and culture are mutually constitutive. So it studies how cultural beliefs, practices, and meanings can influence an individual's cognition, emotions, and his or her behavior. So, how the culture of an individual can influence his thinking, feelings, cognition, emotion, and the way a person behaves. That is cultural psychology. And we also have something called cross cultural psychology. So this basically compares an individual's psychological similarities and differences across different cultures. So it aims to determine whether certain psychological principles are universal or culture specific. So here researcher use this approach to test various theories developed in one culture by applying them to different cultures, and it also helps in promoting a more global understanding of human behavior. So this is basically about cross cultural psychology, which just compares our psychological similarities and differences across various cultures. And we have clinical psychology. So as the name suggests, it basically deals more with the treatment and diagnosis perspective. So here we majorly do assessments, we diagnose and treat the patients who are having mental and emotional disorders. So here we majorly focus on improving the psychological well-being of the individual via therapy and different types of interventions. While culture can influence therapy approaches, clinical psychology is not directly related to the concept of evoked culture. So, evoked culture is related in which type of psychology? It is majorly related to evolutionary psychology. I'll tell you the reason here. Evoked culture is a concept itself from evolutionary psychology, which suggests that certain cultural traits emerges as the adaptive response to environmental conditions. So we adapt our way of living and adapt our way of responding to certain stimulus based on the external environmental conditions which are being presented to us. So according to this view, humans possess some universal psychological mechanisms that are triggered or evoked by specific ecological or social situations. So here is where evoked culture comes into picture. For example, let's imagine people in harsh environments may develop collective cooperation for survival, while those in stable environments may value independence. Thus, evoked culture reflects the interaction between evoked or evolved human nature and environmental processes. So, here the evoked culture they are talking about is how an individual's response evokes and evolves, or we can also say adapts based on the external environmental stimulus, that is basically survival, as explained by Charles Darwin, who is a major figure in evolutionary psychology. So that is the reason why evoked culture is directly related to evolutionary psychology, as it basically talks about the adaptive response of an individual to the environmental conditions and stimulus. So here in the question we have asked, evoked culture is related to what? So from the definitions and explanations we found that evoked culture is very closely related to evolutionary psychology, as they talk about our evolving response of an individual behavior towards the changing stimulus. So option A, evolutionary psychology, is the right answer for this question. And for further references, kindly refer to this following study materials. Thank you.